capital improvements, right? Service committee is a discussion, and as is rules.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Hey, Doug, we're live, so you're good to go, or you're ready to start at 45.
So Jim, I think the service committee is the second committee up. So first we'll do finance. So feel free to flip off your camera if you want.
All right, it is 5:45 on June 15th, and we're going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Lang, Harris, Bubb, Blake, and Marmee. First item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $3,757.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had the lights around the fountain downtown Newark vandalized. This is nothing more than the insurance money for the new lights. Those lights were being installed today if you're in the downtown area. So we're just asking to reappropriate these dollars.
I'll offer a motion.
Second.
Motion by Bubb, second by Lang. Any questions and or discussion? Just for a point of clarification, if you noticed on the sheet that came in, it had a disappropriation also with it, but that disappropriation was not needed. All we needed is the appropriation, so that's why we don't have another piece going with this. It'll be able to be moved into the proper account by just doing this one action. So seeing no further questions or discussion, all those in favor signify by thumbs up. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, Director Rhodes. And with that, this meeting stands adjourned.
Okay, next up is service, and I'm not sure everyone's on, who's all on service. Jeremy, you on service? Spencer?
So Jeff, service is Jeff Rath, Jeff Harris, Spencer Barker, Jeremy Blake, and Ryan Bubb. I can sit in for Jeff Rath since he's not here.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Tonight on the agenda is a presentation by Jim Leonard, Johnstown Village Manager, on the US DOT Intelligent Transportation System. So Jim, if you're on, go ahead and take over.
You're on mute there, Jim.
You would think I'd know how to do that by now. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Appreciate the time. Before I get started, I wanted to let you know I have myself as well as Village Planner Bailey Klimchek on, as well as two of our partners, Darlene McGold and Louis Greenwell. So when you see unfamiliar names, that's who's on. And basically they're keeping me out of trouble and saying things that I shouldn't. So I don't know where you want me to go other than, you know, kind of introduce what the program is, where we've gone and what we plan to do, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
So a couple weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was alerted of an opportunity through the federal government to work on a grant application that basically targets 6 defined population groups. They are veterans, low to moderate income, elderly, people with disabilities, and a few more I don't know off the top of my head. But what this program is for is to utilize technology to help ensure that the complete trip is finalized from start to finish. So what this program is not, it's not a replacement of Licking County Transit or LCATS or anything like that. It's a program that we have viewed as a way to help fill the gaps with the help from the federal government in terms of funding to ensure that whatever impediments that we have found or we will find in this process, that those impediments are mitigated through the use of some sort of technology. So what we have done up to this point is had conversations such as this with many different partners, City of New Albany, Village of Granville, the City of Heath, New Albany, I think I said them, Licking County Transit with some emails, Health Department, Drive Ohio, ODOT. I mean, there's plenty of people that we have spoken with. And basically at this point, we're just trying to get a buy-in and a consensus from the core group of municipalities as well as stakeholders, CODA, LCATS, MORPC, you know, all those ancillary NGOs that are out there that could help fill the data void as well as the knowledge void that the Village of Johnstown, we just don't have by ourselves. So the purpose of me reaching out to Brian was to gauge the city's interest in partnering on this and going forward, because, you know, we think there's this little corridor between New Albany and us, and maybe even getting up into Mount Vernon, that if we bring our collective impediments together, that this program will help fund a solution that can be replicated, that can be not only replicated in Licking County, maybe the east side down to Buckeye Lake, but Central Ohio and ultimately the state of Ohio. And the real goal for the federal program is nationwide replication. So we've had a lot of great conversations with people such as Drive Ohio and ODOT Office of Mobility. And what we would ask, you know, obviously if the city of Newark would like to participate, we can by all means keep you updated and in loop as we go forward. So there's a lot of information. I don't want to take up all your time. I can answer the questions you guys may have.
Any questions, Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, thanks for being with us tonight to sort of talk about this idea. I did go on the federal website to sort of get a better feel of what exactly this type of program is. What do you envision seeing the specific programs that these different communities are going to be able to partner together to develop or suggest, or how do you see this coming to play here?
So what we did is created a matrix. Louis put all of these different populations, the 6 target populations, as well as the segments that are most likely to be impacted. And we put those together and sent those out to the city. And we came up with 4 target populations. and I apologize, I'm looking at my notes so I don't mess this up, but the top 4 target populations were low income, older adults, rural residents, and veterans. And then the challenges that we saw out of the communities was lack of service, no coordination amongst providers, lack of information, and too many payment systems. So just a really quick look by the cities. That's what we came up with. And then the program is to take this data or these information tidbits and then come up with a solution. We're not going looking for a solution that is in a box or that's a technology out there and trying to shove it into our communities and say, oh, look, this is going to work. We want to know what the problem is and then work the solution into mitigating those problems.
I have a follow-up, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up, Jim, and I know that the county is doing a current study. So how would those two different, how would they work in tandem? How would that work together?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we're not reinventing transit. We're not reinventing LCATs. This opportunity became aware to me right at the end of the TDP process and the coordinated plan, which I was a steering committee member of and chair of LCATs at the moment. So I knew it was going on, and what I didn't want to do is bring it up. I mean, it was literally hours before I think our last committee meeting, and have this whole TDP project derailed because it's gone very well up to this point. So the meetings that we're currently having and we've had prior to is to bring everybody on board. So with that being said, the TDP and the coordinated plan will be kind of the playbook. I mean, there's tons of information, there's tons of surveys, there's tons of input from various stakeholder groups. We need to use that. There's no sense in, reinventing the wheel, going out and replicating data sets, anything like that. So this, I think, in my opinion, going forward, this effort of this grant will supplement the ideas and the thoughts in the TDP, in the coordinated plan. So we have to make sure that we follow, whatever's in there to the best of our abilities while serving these 6 populations. So they'll work hand in hand.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Or anybody else that's on? Go ahead, Jeremy.
If no one else is asking questions, I'll ask one more. Do you see each respective government entity having sort of a representative to this task force, or how do you see like the structure of this, sort of a group coming together?
Great question, Mr. Blake. Yes, we would just want one point of contact, as we disseminate information or come together as a stakeholder group online or whatnot. Just one point of contact. If that point of contact, if it's Brian and says, well, Brian decides he's not the one that needs to be tackling this, then maybe he hands it off to someone else. But we would like just that one individual that we can contact instead of, trying to get 2 or 3, 4 individuals from each group. I think we have 20 some stakeholders that gets pretty fun to schedule those meetings. So we would just ask for one representative.
So you're envisioning more of a city administrator versus an elected official being on that type of task force?
Totally up to you guys. I mean, we'll take who you deem necessary to help us with this application.
Any more questions? Okay, Mr. Leonard, thank you for your time. And if that's it, that completes the service committee meeting.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
No problem.
I think capital improvements or rules is up next.
I think rules was after service. Okay. So we got rules is Jeff Harrison, Doug Marmy, and myself. All right. So we'll call this meeting of the Rules Committee together. Members present are Doug Marmy, Jeff Harris, and Jeremy Blake. Our item on our agenda tonight is the discussion on the health safety considerations for the well-being of city council members, city officials, and public participation for the purpose of in-person council meetings to resume. And I guess from picking up from 2 weeks ago where we left off the discussion with direction to bring back information for all council members to hear. And I know that our president has been working on a plan, but just let me share that some information that I further got from the schools just for future reference for the council. I did meet with Matt Dunham. He's the supervisor of the Newark City Schools television station. And Matt did show me that he does indeed have a soundboard and the desired number of microphones to accommodate sound and audio concerns. When Spencer and I met with the school officials, I guess 3 weeks ago now, we met with sort of the principals and the administration. They weren't completely aware of the technology that they had, but Matt did assure me that they do indeed have a soundboard and microphones. So in the future, if we wanted to have a larger space, and that's an option available to us, he said that he would be happily to work with us to set up the space any way we wanted. And if council, I guess I just want to say thank you to the school officials for working with us and having that conversation. Matt also mentioned to me as sort of a tidbit to us so that when we do go back to in-person meetings, he has a wide angle lens camera, which he would offer to us on sort of a permanent loan. He's seen some of our YouTube videos that we've been putting out previously, and he's willing to give that camera to us to use, which would improve our quality for our YouTube videos. So, and he's willing to train Everett, or Everett has his camera that he usually uses, or whoever we get to do that again. But he's willing to offer that it's a school piece of equipment, but he'd give it to us on a permanent loan to use, just to improve our quality of the videos with that. So that's all I have with regards to the schools. And I guess I'll pass it over to President Ellington to share with us the plans.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, that would be great if he would let us try that camera. I think that would be worth a try.
He was most definitely willing to do that, so we could connect him and Everett or whoever we need to. So,
okay, great. Well, I just felt like Director Rhodes and I met with Health Commissioner Brown at council when he came up with an idea of how we could go back meeting in council. And I'm going to have Spencer show a few pictures because I believe Dave Rhodes had Cliff do some things, and I think we have a couple photos of that I'll have hopefully Spencer put up. But I felt like just for the environment we're in right now, even for council, it's my responsibility for council members and for all the citizens that come to make sure they're safe, I think both medically and physically. With this current environment, I felt like when Chad said we could do this and it would be fine, that it would comply, that it would be good for us to meet in a area that we're familiar with and that we can secure. And again, both for us and for any of the public. So that's kind of what we're going to give this a try on July 6th. Here's a picture of what it looks like. So I guess for the 6th, I would like everyone to mask, and except when you're speaking, we'll see how that goes. I don't know how long we'll continue that, but I'd like to give that a try, and we'll have masks for any of the public. But I guess I think this would be a good option. So that's kind of where we are.
Hey, Don, once we get into our seats, so you're saying you want us to wear a mask until we need to talk? Because it looks like the way it is, we're protected, and we could wear a mask up, and then when we leave, wear it down, unless the health department is saying we have to. I don't know how everybody feels about it. I was just throwing that out there.
I understood Chad to say that once we got seated, well, actually, we didn't have to wear a mask even to get seated, but once we got seated, you could take your mask off until you leave with the petitions. That was my understanding of what he said. Maybe Director Rhodes has a different.
Don, that's how I understood it also.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you.
That's it for me, unless anybody else has a question. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Don, I know that other people use council chambers. And so if, the planning commission sits up there so how often will those plastic barriers get cleaned?
They're going to be cleaned
Yeah, I mean-
after. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, they'll be cleaned after every use. We currently have the tax office using council chambers as well as the courts. And we have a very aggressive cleaning program that is ongoing in there. After each use, everything will be cleaned.
So they'll wipe down all the plastic wall and everything.
Yep. And those are, when they come down, they'll come down very easily. They can be wrapped and stored and reused for some future council in case they ever needed to.
Also, the good news, Director Rhodes has come up with some pandemic money that we're going to be getting from the county, that any of these things we use that we don't normally do will be reimbursed. So it was about $1,900, but this shouldn't be any cost to the city, right, Dave?
No, should not be. And one thing, furthermore, Don and I looked at a couple different alternatives, and one of the alternatives was about $8,000. We felt that after speaking with the Lincoln County Health Department, that this was the best route to go in terms of continuity of leaving the members up in their normal chairs and cost and still being safe.
Can you speak to how the public's going to participate? Is the podium going to be moved to the center of the room?
Podium is currently in the center of the room. That is correct. And then somebody from the public would just walk up the center aisle and speak. So they will not be over by Councilwoman Hall, where they normally are. It is in the center of the room.
Councilman Lang? We can't hear you.
Unmute yourself.
There we go. Everybody does it, right? I had a couple of questions. Are we going to put a limit on the number of people able? I mean, I would imagine typically we won't have an issue, but obviously if there's a hot issue, we could get a crowd of people. So are we going to limit the number of people that are able to come into chambers?
Well, Dave, I believe there's 12 that can be in chambers with the 6 foot. Is that correct?
11.
11. And then we're going to have to open the doors and just go from there and have them.
So 11 in addition to the 14 on the dais?
Correct.
That's correct.
And Don, you were asking about masks before. Are we generally going to ask everybody in the audience to stay masked unless they're coming to the podium?
That was my plan for this first meeting.
Okay.
Unless somebody else wants to do something different.
And I think you had said Dave has masks for people coming.
We do. I've got 400 masks currently available to me for this type of use.
And then, Mr. Chair, just one last question. For committees, we hadn't really talked about the logistics of that, but as I was looking at how we have it set up, to me, it would seem to make sense that everybody just stay in their assigned seat. And, we typically would go up to the president's seat for, whoever's the chair. I don't see any reason why we necessarily need to do that. Once Doug will have to start the computer recording for the first committee, but generally I would think maybe it's just working with Janine to have our, the forms at the desk of each chair who's going to be on, chairing a committee that night.
Hadn't thought about that, but that's a possibility. Or I could also have Janine there running the recorder and everybody could just sit in their own seat if you want.
I like that idea. I mean, I like the clerk being there. So,
okay.
Any other questions? Sean, Councilman Fennell?
Yes, I was wondering just to clarify when we're leaving and because the only kind of area that I see as an issue really is the coming and the going and the background. Like even when we begin the meetings and end the meetings, are we just going to what will that kind of look like? Because there won't be any barrier. We will be wearing masks, I assume, at that point. But I was just kind of curious if you could speak to that.
Not sure how that's going to look, except try to do as the best we can for spacing until I try it. Unless, again, somebody has a different suggestion. I think we certainly can't crowd all up there to get in there. But if we could just, do our 6 foot spacing, hopefully, and don't sneeze on the mirror when you walk by.
Why don't we just, at the end of the meeting, why don't we just start with Ward 1, get up and walk out, and then Ward 2, then Ward 3. We're just gonna do it like that. Just
That's a good idea.
space it out. just go by your seat and just wait till they get halfway out and then the next person
Right.
get up and go, I guess.
You want to try to do the same thing when we go in? Or not really?
We all get there at different times, so
And we
yeah,
can,
yeah.
But I think the idea is we're going to put a mask on when we're moving around, right? So as you're walking by somebody else's spot, you're going to be wearing a mask.
and I hate to say this, but I think you'll be a lot safer than you would be if you're at Lowe's or somewhere else at this point. So just my opinion.
Any other questions or concerns? I will say when I first got your email that I was like, wait a minute, you're putting council members in boxes. What is it? We're going to be like little, little figures in plastic boxes. So I couldn't envision that, but the pictures help. So I appreciate the picture tonight. So
Oh, thanks.
any other comments or questions, concerns?
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to publicly thank the council clerk and the council president for their involvement in this plan, and particularly the council clerk's willingness to work from home and allow the tax office during the tax busy time to use the council offices to help prepare returns. It's just been a very good communication. And Don, thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, then we will adjourn the Rules Committee, and up next is capital improvements.
Oh, there's Jeff. Okay. I think we have everybody. Okay. Call this meeting of the Capital Improvements Committee to order. Those present are myself, Councilman Lang, Councilman Hall, Councilman Rath, Councilman Labutus, and Councilman Fennell. Thank you everybody for being here. We're going to consider resolution 20-41, appropriating monies for the current expense of the municipal corporation in the amount of $24,000. Director Rhodes, are you speaking to this?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would allow us to purchase 2 zero-turns that would be used in the parks and the cemetery. Each year we try to buy a couple mowers for the parks and cemetery. I held off bringing this forward because of the virus and not really knowing exactly where we would be, but we feel comfortable enough to move forward and make these purchases.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? I'll entertain a motion.
A motion.
Motion by Labutus, second by Rath. Any further discussion from the committee? Anyone from the audience or anybody else on the Zoom call here? Okay, with that, we'll vote to send this on to full council. All those in favor signify with a thumbs up. All those opposed, same sign. All right, that passes 5-0. This committee stands adjourned, and I believe that's the last committee. We will adjourn here, and full council will convene at 7 o'clock. Thank you.